The saga of Julian Assange continues, and we have an update in his situation. Assange's legal fight to avoid U.S. espionage trial resumes in London. Julian Assange resumes his battle in a London court on Monday to avoid extradition to the United States to face criminal charges over the activities of his WikiLeaks website after months of delay due to the coronavirus lockdown. The U.S. authorities accuse Australian-born Assange, 49 years old, of conspiring to hack government computers and violating an espionage law in connection with the release of confidential cables by WikiLeaks in 2010 and 2011. Assange is seen by his admirers as a champion of free speech who exposed U.S. abuses of power. His critics say that by pushing unredacted documents, he recklessly endangered the lives of intelligence sources in Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. By the way, there is zero evidence to prove that. He has also attracted more recent criticism over the release by WikiLeaks during the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign of documents stolen from the Democratic National Committee, damaging nominee Hillary Clinton. He denies accusations by U.S. investigators that WikiLeaks obtained those documents from Russian hackers. The issue is not part of the legal proceedings. Assange made international headlines in 2010 when WikiLeaks published a U.S. military video showing a 2007 attack by Apache helicopters in Baghdad that killed 12 people, including 2 Reuters news staff. The site later published vast troves of U.S. military records and diplomatic cables. So, that's what this is really about. He exposed very powerful people who avoid accountability. He showed that the U.S. military had killed civilians, circled around, and killed the first responders. This was all on video. This is Chelsea Manning, who gave Julian Assange all this stuff because Chelsea had a conscience and said the American people need to know what's going on in their name with their money. And ever since then, he's been public enemy number one. How dare you expose the crimes of the U.S. government? And there's been repeated attempts to smear him. There were bogus sexual assault charges that ended up being dropped, by the way. And he was hiding in the Ecuadorian embassy for a long time. And then we all know what happened relatively recently. And the U.S. is trying to get him and, charge him with espionage and lock him up and throw away the key. That's the goal. And he's a political prisoner. It's as simple as that. He's a political prisoner. He exposed powerful people, and this is something that is supposed to be protected by the Constitution. Now, I get it. Julian Assange is not an American citizen, but if you're exposing the crimes of the government, and the Constitution, by the way, like the First Amendment is supposed to be a restriction on the government punishing people for free speech and a free press. So it shouldn't matter that he's not an American citizen. The government should not have the authority to punish free speech or crack down on a free press. So that's largely irrelevant that he's not an American citizen. Either we do or don't abide by the principles laid out in the Constitution and the First Amendment. And obviously what's going on here is they're saying we don't care about the First Amendment, free speech, a free press, the Constitution. We're going to ignore all that because this guy exposed the crimes of what is effectively, I don't mean this term conspiratorially, I mean it factually, he exposed the crimes of the deep state. So everybody needs to understand historically how these things work. Because this happened with Daniel Ellsberg as well. Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers, we learned that the U.S. military was killing civilians all throughout Vietnam in the most insane ways you can imagine. And when that was released, he was called all the same things. Called every bad name in the book and a traitor, treasonous, all that stuff. And history vindicated Daniel Ellsberg. History is also going to vindicate Edward Snowden and Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. In the case of Edward Snowden, we just learned that a court ruled that what the government was doing, what the NSA was doing, was unconstitutional. So that's full vindication for Edward Snowden. He should be pardoned immediately. He should be allowed back in the country immediately. In the case of Julian Assange exposing U.S. crimes, same thing. Chelsea Manning, who still persecuted to this day for giving this information over to WikiLeaks, same thing. And unfortunately, Julian Assange is in a position where he doesn't have many people left to defend him because he did leak on the Democrats in 2016 and basically showed that Hillary stole the primary from Bernie. And they accused him of getting the information from Russia. I honestly don't see how that's relevant either way, if it's Russia or if it's not Russia. If we're learning a fact, and the fact is they rigged the primary against Bernie, I don't even care how you got it. Of course we have the right to know that effectively our votes didn't matter and they did everything they could to try to screw this guy. But like the fact that Julian Assange released this meant a lot of people who would formerly defend him turned on him because, a lot of people on the right hate him because they're so pro-military and pro-America that if you expose American war crimes, they think like you're with the enemy or something. But now a lot of people on the left hate him too because, they view him as one of the reasons why Hillary Clinton went down to Donald Trump. So he's got no political home. And as a result of that, it's a lonely place to be where you did the right thing and you exposed powerful people and now they're throwing the book at you and you're living in a nightmare and you don't have that much support. And it really is a shame because what he did in principle was correct. And this is a political prisoner and this is state persecution. And we should all acknowledge that. Guys, it shouldn't even matter. Like, it shouldn't even matter if you like him or dislike him. If you agree or disagree with what happened in 2016, this is not even about 2016. It's got nothing to do with Russia. It's got nothing to do with that. So either you believe in a free press, free speech, the First Amendment, or you don't. And by the way, everybody in the media with all their moralizing and grandstanding about freedom of speech, free press, when Trump does a mean tweet about Chuck Todd. Where are you now when it's a real threat to free speech and the First Amendment? Where are you now? You're nowhere to be found. And all the so-called free speech warriors on the right who've cloaked themselves in this issue as if they're principled on it. Where are they now? Is Dave Rubin or Ben Shapiro doing a long thing on this? I don't see it. So they're all frauds. Everybody's a fraud. God damn it. Here we have a real First Amendment issue. A real free speech, free press issue. A real example of the state persecuting somebody for doing the right thing. And I hear crickets. So few voices speaking up, and it's a real shame.